Kaifis said to Rabbi Gamliel, "Elokechem ganafu." Your God, your Eibishter is a ganef. How do I know? Why am I accusing that? Why am I saying that? Alleging that? See what it says. By Adam, the Eibishter put Adam to sleep, and he went to sleep. And then what does it say there? It says that he basically created Chava. So he stole a rib from Adam in order to stole a bone from Adam to make Chava. Amrule Bartes, the daughter of the Kaifer, said to Gamliel, "Do you mind? Let me answer my father." Shavke, he allowed him. The Anam, Shavke, leave him be. The Anam Adanle, I am going to answer my father. Amrle, she said to her father, I need a judge. Amrle Lamalach, what are you judge for? So she'll tell you what happened. Last night, least in Bo Aleinu Halayla, these robbers broke into our home at night, but not Lumimenu Kitan Shulkesev. They took from the house a jug of silver, and in the place they put down a golden cup. When Daflama tests on an Aleph, about 10 lines on top of the page. So this Kaifer is alleging that the Eibishter is a ganef for stealing one of the bones of Adam to create Chava. So his daughter, so this Kaifer's daughter said to Gamliel, I'm going to answer. We had a ganef break into our house, stole a jug of silver and replaced it with a jug of gold. So the father said, for that you need a judge. We love these kind of ganef. Let them come every day. So she says in turn, isn't it a good thing that Adam Rishon lost one side? And its place, he received a wife, Chava. So what's your question? Now this Gemara actually a little bit difficult to understand, but on the other hand, this is her daughter and the father talking. It meets our halacha because we learned in Ezer Neshech, if somebody steals something and he had in mind to repay the person with kefil, you're not allowed to, you're still a ganef. So his question is still a valid question. If the Eibush isn't the Eibush a ganef, just because he gave in return something better than what he took, he's still a ganef. But maybe because this is daughter and father having a conversation, and I'm going to mix in, this conversation necessarily agrees with halacha. So the father said to justify his question, why did he have to put him to sleep? Take it for him while he's awake. So she continued telling the father, bring me a raw piece of meat and we'll make a barbecue. He brought it to her. She placed it underneath the coal to grill it, but coal is dirty and everything else. She took it out. She said to the father, eat mahai from this piece of meat I just made you. How can I eat it? It's me. I saw how you prepared it. She said, same thing with if the Hashem would have taken the rib from Adam while Chava was there, it would have been miyas that he wouldn't be able to respect her the way he's supposed to. Another incident, I know, he was poking fun, and he was saying to him, Gamliel, because the Nevi'as was taken away after the Churban Beis Hamikdash, and he wants to say, but we goyim have it. I know exactly what Hashem is doing right now, the Heichen Yosef, exactly where he finds himself. So just, teasing. He's nagid v'isra. Gamliel starts to sigh and krechts and moan. What's going on? He said, Gamliel said to this Kaifer, I have a son overseas. Have pangs of yearning for him. Being in the Machal, I want to know. I want to see him. Maybe you can tell me right now where my son is. Sorry. He said, I want to see him, my son. So he said back to me, so the Kaifer said, you think I know where your son is? Kiva said to him, what's down here on this earth, you have no idea. You can tell me you know what's going on in heaven. Another incident, it says, that Hashem counts the stars and he gives them all names. What's the big deal? I also can count stars. I say chavush. He brought a bunch of quince apples. Shadina babil. He put them in this sieve of this kind of keli. Become a hadul, and he kind of turning them around. They're twisting. They should continue revolving around. And Amalek, he said, "Maninu, count how many there are here." Amalek said, "Go, Camino, stop turning them so I can count." Amalek knew the kiyanami hachi hadra. In heaven also, they're all going in orbits, and therefore it's not easy to count. Or Yikidami, others say, "Hachamalek." The Koiva said, I counted all the stars. I know exactly how many stars there are. Emily, tell me, Kavich v'shinach, your smaller teeth and your larger teeth. Kama hava, how much do you have? Shada Yoda, he put his finger in his mouth to count his teeth. Come on, he started counting. So he said, I'm going to say to him, the Ika you have no idea what's going on in your mouth. Ika you know what's going on in heaven. But, what are you talking about? Now, there used to be something we never understood. There used to be a myth that women have less teeth than men. I think men had 32, women had 31. And I always wondered, why didn't you just put the finger in the mouth and count how many teeth they had? But here you see clearly that people generally didn't do that. And therefore he was able to respond to him and says, you have no idea. He says, there must be two gods. Because you look at the psukim, at the text, you'll see that the different words used, different words of describing the creation. Obviously, each god created differently. For example, whoever created the mountains did not create the wind. Why do I say that? Because it says in the pasuk, so when it comes to mountain, we use the word yotzid. And when it comes to the wind, it says, he created the wind. Obviously, it's two different gods. So he asked him back. What about by Adam? So it says by Yivra, by Yitzer, by Adam. One pasuk says that he created Adam by Yivra. One pasuk says by Yitzer he created Adam. For every person, there were two gods involved in the creation. Tefach al tefach yesh ba'adam, that a person has, let's say, a tefach. Okay, one thing you can explain to me, the limbs that are far away from each other, maybe different gods, different parts of the body. But what about we talk about the same kind of head? You have one head. Ushnei nikovim yesh, but you have two holes. You have the ears, you have the eyes. Are you going to tell me Misha Borazeh, Loy Borazeh, whoever created this did not create that? According to your logic, look at the text. Shenema. It says in the test, Hanoita Oizen, that he planted the ear, one expression, and then it says Im Yitzirayin. Im Yitzirayim. When it comes to the eye, use the word Yitzir. You can tell me two different gods right next to each other. Allah Yabit, Amala'in. He said, yes. Why not? They're two different gods. Amalei, so Emil said to him, so when it comes time to die and your eyes stop working, your ear stops working, you tell me cool in the spice, all the gods that were involved in the creation of one person, they have a meeting every time. Every time the person has to die, having a meeting, so should we kill this person or not? So now the truth of the matter is he could have continued and said yes, but I guess it was enough to convince him that he wasn't right. So we're up to Lamed Tetzim, and right in the middle of the page, we're having these different discussions of, because yesterday's Gemara we learned about, only people who know how to engage with these minim should engage. Not everybody should engage, but only goyish minim. So we're bringing a number of stories where there were discussions between Tanoim and these Kaifrim. So this witch, warlock, said to Ameimar, and he said the following: that the top half of your body was created by a demon called Hurmis, and the son of Lilith. And the bottom half is the Ahurmis. Ahurmis is another name, a euphemism for the Eibishter. I guess he was poking fun at the bottom half of your body, which basically just does, very mundane activities, is where the Eibishter is involved. In the top half, which you use your brain, your mind, and your heart, that's by this demon, by this shade called Hermes. Amalei, so he said to him, if you believe that, Heichi Shavik Lei Ahurmis, Lo Hurmis, why in the world would Ahurmis, which is a name for Hashem, who you say created the bottom half of the person, allow Laburi Mai Bade, to allow that the top part, which is the demon, to send all their waste through him to come to the ground. So in other words, it's Baba Mises. Trace's version is not Hurmis and Ahurmis, but rather it's Hurmis and Hurmin. Hurmis is a Bakovidic name of Kedusha, and Hurmin is the name of a demon. Hurmin was the son of Lilith. And that is why it says in Sfarim that a Jew should not go by the name of Herman, because Herman is like Hurmin, which is the name of a Shindalad. The case is said to Rab Tanchum. Now there's a big debate. We have a medrash called Medrash Tanchuma. There's a big debate of Medrash Tanchuma was written by one of the Goinim. They lived in the times of Anasavrai, was in Amira. Who was he? And And some say that Tanchum in the Gemara, especially the one we had in Baba Kama Daf test, is Rabbi Tanchum of Menesh Nachum. You see here an incredible story. So the case it went to Tanchum and said, let's all become one nation. We should all be the same. No multiculturalism. We should become one nation. The idea was that the Eden should become like the Goyim. So Tanchum said, yeah, good idea. I agree. Now the problem is we can never become like you. Because Anan de Mahalinan, we who are circumcised, we can never become like you. But you are not Gemalit. So At and Malitu, why don't you all go and circumcise yourselves? And then you become like us. Amalei, the king said, well, the king had nothing to answer. Amalei Meimer Shapakam, he said, well, we have a rule in our kingdom, and we had it a few times, the Gemara, called the Zochir Malka, anybody who wins the government or the king in an argument, we throw them into a den of lions. Or in a cage. Shadul Bibba, they tossed up Tanchum into this cage of lions. The lions did not affect him or impact him at all, didn't bother him at all. So the same story as Daniel. And Tanchum had the same miracle. There was a minute that couldn't take it, and he wanted Tanchum to perish. So he says to the king, you know why these lions didn't eat him? And they weren't hungry. So let him hang around for a while. The lions get hungry, they'll take care of him. The king said, you know what? Great idea. Shadul the day they threw the men inside to test the lions, his theory, and yet the lions ate him. Go back to the Kaifer and Gamliel. So I'm not sure why the story of Tanchum came right in the middle of all these stories of the Kaifer and Gamliel. But this Kaifer and Gamliel, Amritu, you say, Ko be Asora Shchinta Shaya. Whenever there are 10 people, the Shchina rests. It must be so many shchinas. It doesn't say here in the Gemara when you have a minyan davening or a minyan learning. It just says 10 yidden together. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya writes that when the Malachim are envious when 10 Jews sit down together, there's such kedusha there that the Malachim can't even take that. And it's not even talking about davening or learning, just being together. And therefore, surely we should do something with kodesh learning or davening because you have such a madreg of shchina there. And some ask where the Alter Rebbe gets it from. And you see it right here in the Gemara. Not because they daven together or they learn together, just the fact that 10 Yidden together, that is already the Shechina is there. Anyways, he asked, how many Shechinas are there? So what happened was Rav Gamliel called over the Shamish of this Koifer and Mocha Be'aftika. He gave him a smack on his neck. Amalei said to him, why? What did you hit me for? He said to him, Al Shimsha Bebeisa de Kaifer, because you're allowing the sun to enter the house of this agnostic here. Amalei said to him, Shimsha Akoyama Dichoy, the sun you think directs the sunlight to this person's house, it travels all the world. So Gamliel then turned around to the Kaifer. Ma Shimsha, Ma the Shchina. The Chad min Elef Alpei Ribu, it's one of 1,000 of 10,000 Shamasha de Kamakujabrich. Hashem has so many different stars and suns and everything else. And yet Nichel Kuliyama, yet the sun. It's such a small creation, yet it travels throughout the whole world and shines the whole world. Shchinta de Kuchabrichu. Imagine the Shchina of the Eibishter Alachas Kama is all over the world. One Eibishter is everywhere. As it says, less Asar Panimene. There's no region where Hashem is not. The Eibishter is a jester. The Eibishter is a joker. Why? He tells Yechezkel, he says, Yechezkel, I want you to lie down on your left side. And then he says to Yechezkel, see what it says? And Hashem told him, you should lie on your right side. He's playing with it. 1 minute he tells him one way, another way, makes him very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, also another Talmud came along, and this time it wasn't a kaifer, it was a genuine Talmud. He said, my time is Shviyasa. He said to him, you know what? Why did the Eibishter give a Shemitah? He said, Hashta now, I mean, the Shabbat of I mean, one answer to both. That's going to answer my Talmud's question and the Kaifer's question. The Eibishter said, Zaru Sheish, I want you to plant for 6 years, V'hishmita Sheva. And the 7th year, leave the land fallow. Kedei should tedu, so you should all know that even the 6 years that you're successful, it's my success. What happens during the first base of Mikdash in Yuma, that they did not observe the Shemitahs. And that was why there were 70 years in Gola's bubble, because there were 70 Shemitahs, 490 years from the beginning from the beginning of David, or from Shaul, and they did not did not observe any of the Shemitahs. They did not observe any of the Shemitahs. And therefore, after the period of the Shoftim, and that is why they were punished. 70 Shemitahs that they missed out, they were in bubble. So so 70 years in not being at Israel, they didn't till the land. So they made up for those 70 Shemitahs. Now, he's like this. Generally speaking, how's it work? You have a human king. If for whatever reason a nation rebelled against him, what does he do? So if he's ruthless, well, it's cool, kill them all. If the king can show any signs of sympathy, we'll kill half. But if, for example, he's full of rachmanus and mercy, then will only afflict the leaders, be yisurin with pain, and that will be an atonement for everybody. He made Yecheskel uncomfortable to be a kapara on the rest of the Eden who were not behaving properly. So it wasn't just joking with him. So let me ask a question. When he buried Moshe, he was a kohen. How did he tell himself? As Taisha points out, he didn't ask how was Abish allowed to become Tameh if he was a kohen, because we are the Abish's children, B'nai B'chai Yisrael. So obviously you're allowed to be Tameh to a child. But how did he tell himself? Now the whole thing is a ludicrous discussion here, and yet the Gemara shows that they didn't just dismiss them; they engaged in a conversation. The Krefer said, this means that you think it's water. What it says, it says that who can measure all this water that's inside my fist? As if to say that all the waters of the world is on the Abish's fist. So how in the world can Abish submerge in a mikveh? Fire. See, it says, Hashem comes in fire. So he said, where do you find tefillah in fire? He said to him, on the contrary, actually the best kind of tefillah is in fire. The Chsiv says, it talks about vessels there after the war of Midian. It says, any keli that you cannot kasha through fire, then put it in the water. So you see that a mikvah ideally should be fire and then water. Now, the whole conversation is ludicrous because we're having more brachas already, that even a Torah is not makabel tumah. Hashem says, my words are like fire, and ma eish ain't makabel tumah. Fire is not makabel tumah, so too we know. So the Abish himself cannot be makabel tumah. So they were just humoring him and showing that if you can engage in conversation and point out the weaknesses, then do that. If not, you shouldn't. In fact, quickly, very short story. Ramosha Feinstein was asked once, why does he and the Lubavitcher Rebbe were very much against having dialogues between the Orthodox rabbis and the Reform rabbis. And this person asked Ramosha Feinstein, why? You find all over the Gemara that they used to have discussions with Tzedukim by Susim right here, they have discussions with Minim and Kaifrim. So why can't an Orthodox rabbi be on this panel to have discussions with the Reform rabbis or conservatives? So Ramosha said like this. In the Gemara, you find a few times that the Tzduki did something terribly wrong. The Tzduki didn't believe in the idea of water, Nisach HaMayim on Sukkos. So when this Kohen, who was a Tzduki, he was up there, he took the water and he poured it over his foot instead of pouring it down those chutes on the Mizbech. What was the response of the people there standing by? It says it was Zorku Ha'am Esragim. They took the Esragim and they bombarded this individual Esragim. So Ramosha said, when the average person understands that Tzduki is not Yiddishkeit, and they bombard him with a Sragim, then it's the rabbi's duty to talk to them and try to convince them. Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai would have all these discussions to try to convince them the error in their ways. He says, today, the average person doesn't know the difference between one rabbi and the next. A rabbi is a rabbi. So therefore, it's the job of the Rabbanim to throw their Sragim on these Tzedukim so everyone knows that they're merely a Tzduki. Okay, anyway, So, saying about further, that this means that Rabavina, see it says in the pasuk, "Mi ka'avchaki Yisrael v'yacham haaretz." So, in other words, there's something special about the Bnei Yisrael. Ma'arusai, what's so special about Eden? It says somewhere else, Kol hagoyim kain egda. All the nations of the world are like nothing to Eibishter. In other words, there's nothing special about the Eden. Amalei, so he answered him back, Miditchu asidalam, one of yours, Bilam, Harasha, who was the Navi. He said himself, the says, Ubagoyim lo yizchashav, that we are not counted among the rest of the Goyim. So when it says the Goyim are nothing, talking about everybody but the Eden. What is the question? It says in one pasuk, Toiv Hashem Makoil, Hashem is good to everybody. See, another pasuk says that Toiv Hashem Lekoiva, that Hashem is only good to those who have hope in Him and believe in Him. Which one is it? So when it answers Moshe La'adam, this is compared to a person. That watch, he has a big orchard, when he irrigates the field, Mashke is kula. He irrigates all the trees, doesn't select which trees yes, which is no. When he plows, when he has to prune the trees and plow, he has to work on the trees, he then only works with the good ones. He only works with the good ones. So the same thing over here. So when it comes to things which are for everybody, the angels doesn't pick and choose. So Toiv Hashem to everybody. But when it comes to say giving people schar for doing things, it's only those people who do it, not for everybody. Only those who believe in it. Anyway, it says therefore Kol echad ve'echad. When the Mishnah says that the agent will say, "What do I need? Mali l'tzara zayis. Why should I get involved? Especially if the person will get killed. Why I should it be on my shoulders that I killed somebody?" And the Mishnah concludes, "Ba'avoid l'shoyim if a Russia disappears, the Abish is happy." Says the Gemara, when Achav died, everybody was joyous, exuberant. Is talking about Achav ben Imri Rina. When he died, everybody was euphoric. Says the Gemara, is the Eibishter really happy when the Shoim drowned? It says, but the Yeshafat said when he went to war, he says, that when the soldiers went before me, and they said, and they're missing two words there. They praise to Hashem, Kilayim is always good. It doesn't say Kitayv. Why doesn't it say Kitayv? Hashem is not happy with the mapol of the Shayim. When the Mitzrayim were chasing the Eden, they didn't approach it that whole night. That time, the Malachim wanted to sing a song, happy that Eden will be saved. These Egyptians are going to drown. You want to sing a song? No, Hashem's happiness is not complete. Said, "Who ain't a sus? Hashem is not happy. But He makes others happy. Economic Yossi that He will make other people happy. Like see, Yossu doesn't say that He will be happy. Shmamino. Now, interesting. First of all, the halach is we don't say the complete halal the rest of Pesach, and one of the reasons is because the simcha is not complete. Hashem, at the end of the day, is unhappy that he lost so many. Shimshon asked the Paul, you learn the Gemara exactly the opposite. When Sanhedrin attacked the Eden, Chizkiah Melech, so the Abish, 185,000 soldiers, and Chizkiah was petrified. We learn Gemara, Shevna tried to make peace. Shevna Harasha tried to make peace. So there, what happened was that at night, the Abish opened up the heavens, and all of the soldiers heard the Malachim singing the praise to Hashem, and they just all passed out, and they all died. So he teaches, this is what happened. When these Goyim, the stream, were attacking the Eden, and the Eden felt very threatened, as we know. So the Malachim said, Bikshur Malachim Lei Meshira. They said to Abish, let us do the same thing that we're going to do in the future with Sanhedrin. Let us sing it, the Kaddish to you, and we'll all die. So Hashem said, Maisa Yodai Tovabim. These Mitzrayim were so evil. Sanhedrin didn't do anything yet. He's going to do. These Mitzrayim were so evil, they drowned my children. He said, take every Jewish child and throw them in the river. So because these people, you want them to pass away in such a holy way through singing songs? No, let them drown in the ocean. He turned the whole Gemara around, the other way around. In Chassidish Sfarim, they ask a question: if the Malachim were not allowed to sing a song because Hashem is unhappy, and how can you sing the song? Then how can we sing Oz Yashin? If the Malachim were not allowed to sing, you're not permitted to sing, why could we sing? So Chassidish Sfarim explain, Chassidish Chabad as well, the difference between a malach and a person is that a malach, every malach has one feature, one character trait, and that's all they are. They're fixed. Michal is chesed, Gavril is gevura, and that's why Rashi says each malach had their own mission. You can only do one thing. A human, on the other hand, we can have two contrary midas at the same. We can have chesed, we have gevura. We can be sometimes good, sometimes bad. We're the same person. And sometimes we can mix the two together. You discipline your child, you give him a smack, it's gevura, but the ultimate purpose is chesed. You want the child to become a mensch. Only we had the capacity. So we were able during Oz Yasher to be happy the fact that we were saved and cry for the fact that the Abish's creatures had to die. So therefore we were able to be both. We can cry and laugh at the same time. Malachim can't do that. That's what we were able to sing and they couldn't. Okay, the Gemara continues. Now that we mentioned Achav, we'll continue a little bit more about Achav. And it says in the pasuk by Achav that that they washed and the Zionis. Now normally Zionis are harlots. What's going on over there? So the Gemara, many times in Gemara we take a hay and we change it to a ches. So we're going to read it as if to say, the word Zionis is chizyonis. Hazionis is chazionis. There were two visions from two different Nevi'im. And therefore, and both of them took place here regarding Achav. And one was Achash Michahu, even though his name is Micha, they called him Michahu, Achash Eliyahu. Interesting. Maybe the reason why they called him the Gemara Michahu, and we'll see later Avadyahu, even though his real name is Avadya, is maybe because they didn't want to finish Hashem's name. You know, that people who, even Yehuda, my grandfather wouldn't write and finish with a hey because it has Hashem's name. He would either write with an aleph or put a little stroke on top. So Micha would end with Yud K. Avadya would end with Yud K. So maybe that's why they go and put a vav at the end, so it shouldn't be Hashem's name. So what happened was there were two visions. One of Micha and Echad. The Mecho, it says, regards Im Shoiv Toshu B'Sholom, if he comes back here peacefully, Lo Dibra Hashem Bi, Hashem didn't speak to me. In other words, he said that Achav is going to die in the middle of the war, and he's not coming back. And then it says, by Yirmiyah, Kibelioksiv, with that flamet tesam base in the middle of the page, right in the middle. Kibelioksiv, but by Eliyahu it says, the Mekoim Asher Lokaku Haklovim as Dam Novus, in the very place where Achav killed Novus HaYisraeli, and the dogs licked up his blood. So that's where you're going to come. Now, both Levius were contradicting each other. Is he coming back or he's not coming back? So what they did was they washed these visions. They made them somehow or another be consistent because he died in the battle, but then they brought him home. So therefore, both happened. His blood was bleeding from the carriage, and it bled to that place where the dogs were licking the blood from Novus. Says the Gemara, Rava says, no, I say Zionus Mamash. He actually had two statues there of Zionus. And what happened was Achav Ish Mitzrayim, he was frigid. She made two statues of Zionus in the wagon, so that they can see them, and he'll get excited. The Ish, what happened then was the Ish Moshe Bakesh. We're talking about Achav, his demise. The Ish Moshe Bakesh is a person that pulled his arrow. Lit tumay. Usually tumay means innocently, without him being aware that he was about to hit Achav. And what happened was Ayakin hit Achav. What happened? Without realizing what he did, just an innocence. And Rabbi says Lit Tamim, to complete. Shtei Chizyon is a two vision. To make them complete, to make them no longer contradictory. So he was killed in the battle, and then he was brought home. Simon Krav is it says the passage by Yikra Achav Avadyo. The Navi at that time was Avadya, and the Achav called him Asher Alabayis. He was in charge of the household. By Avadya, and then the pasuk suddenly says Avadya Hoya Yore Hashem Ma'oid. The Avadya was a God-fearing person, Ma'oid, very much so. My comma, why suddenly are we talking about that Avadya was a God-fearing person? How does it fit into the pasuk? So it says My kamakra. This is what Achav complained to Avadia. So he said to him, Yaakov says, "Nichashti vayvachin Hashem beglolech." That I worked out for my nichush, for my what do you call it, for my magic, my divination. He said I worked out. That's all because you that had the bracha. The Yosef by Yosef says similar thing. By Yevorach Hashem at Beis Hamitzri, the Abish to bench the house mitzvah petifa because Yosef because of Yosef. But based on God, but my house is not being benched. Obviously, the failing is in you. Shavuot Yodel came out, maybe you're not a God-fearing person. Yotz the Baskel Omra came along the Baskel and said, by Vadya Hoya Yorias Hashem Ma'oi, Vadya, you should know, was a God-fearing person. The problem is Achav. You don't deserve a bracha. What's written by Vadya is even greater than what's said by Avram. Avram, like see Ma'oi, by Avram it says, I know that after the story of Akedah, the pinnacle of Avram and Aveda, he says, I know you're a God-fearing person. It doesn't say Ma'oid. By Vadya, it says the word Ma'oid. So it's even greater than Avram. We had the similar thing in the beginning of Bas in the first Pedic, where Sutton was saying that Eov is even greater than Avram. Why was Avadia meriting Nevi'is? Now, what kind of question is that? We never ask about any other Navi. Why was this person Zoichet to be a Navi? The problem with Avadia is, as we'll see in a minute, he was a Ger. He was actually from Esav and he was a Ger. And it says that the criteria to be a Navi is you have to be Ima of Ima Yisrael. You have to be Meyuchas. How did Avadia then, was he Zoichet to become a Navi in his own right? So we answer in this chus that he put his life on the line to save the Nevi'im. He hid 100 Nevi'im in the cave because Izeva went out to kill every single Navi. She didn't enjoy what they had to say. She went and killed every Navi. And he went ahead and he hid 100 Nevi'im. And because he hid 100 Nevi'im at his peril. Now, if you know, just to quickly give you a little history, he fed them with his own money. And eventually he borrowed and borrowed and borrowed. And when he died, we read in later on, this woman came over to Elisha and he said that, we ran out of money. And I have all these lenders, these creditors are coming and chasing after me. They want my children. She was the wife of Avadia. And she says that my husband borrowed all this money to save these 100 Nevi'im. And now they're all coming to demand payment. I can't do it. And then Elisha did the whole nest with oil, with the barrels. So it's a long story. Says the Gemara. So what happened was, Shneimar says, "Vahiba hachis is devil to be Hashem," and he's went around killing all the Nevi'im. Vayikach Avadia made him to 100 Nevi'im, and he hid them. Chamish Shemish Myra 50 per cave. Ma'ishlach Chamish 150 per cave. Yaakov Lam. You live in Yaakov. Shneimar says, "Vayamachanish the plate." Yaakov decided not to put all the eggs in one basket, like the CEOs of a company don't fly together on the plane. He separated them. He said, 50 go one cave, 50 another cave. So in case Chas v'Shalom Achav or Izebel discover one cave, but still another cave of 50 Nevi'im. Actually, Yaakov had 3 different groups, not just 2, 3. So they want to say the same thing over here also, because it says that he took 100 Nevi'im from. It sounded from the reading of the pasuk, it sounds like there were more Nevi'im there, and they were somewhere else hidden. And from them he took 100 and he separated them 50, so we're actually 3 camps. You know why? Because the caves were all small and they couldn't put in more than 50 people per cave. The vision of Avadia, this is what Hashem says to Adam. So Avadia is the one who gave Nevi'is for about what's the future of Edom. So the question is, why Dafka Avadia was chosen to be the Navi regarding Esav? Let Avadia come, will live between 2 Deshoim, Achav and Ezevel, and yet he himself was a tzaddik, didn't learn from them. And the Yanabe, and let him prophecy al Esav Harasha, Shador Beshnei Tzaddikim, Esav lived between 2 tzaddikim, he lived between Yitzchak and Rivka and didn't learn a thing from them. Omar Ephraim Miksha, Talmida Shiramer. Very few. Some of the names of the Shvatim are out there in Tanoim Amoraim, and some of the names of Shvatim we have nobody for. And Ephraim, this is the only Ephraim that we have in Shas. Ephraim Miksha was a student of Ramer. So Hamidish Rameir, Mishum Rameir, Avadia gave a doimahaya. Rameir says, Rameir himself was a descendant of Gadim, as we know, and Rameir said that Avadia was himself, Avadia was a Gaid from Edom. Behind the ancient people are saying, Minei Be'aba, from the forest itself, Nazel Beinarga, we're going to go and chop down the trees. That was metal, even though you use a metal axe to chop down the tree, but without a wooden handle, you couldn't work with it. So from the forest itself, from Esav itself, Avadia, he's the one who prophesied about their downfall. Vayaches Moav, and we find a similar expression. It says that Vayaches Moav, that David HaMelech went ahead and struck Moav. Vayemadei Machevel, and he went ahead and he measured them with David, measured them with a rope that Hashkev Oisam Arza, and they were all lying there on the ground. And David HaMelech was able to make the major conquest against Moav. Why? People say, for the forest itself, because David comes from Rus, and Rus comes from Moav. He also, Rabdimi said the same idea, but he says that Yorech v'toicha masrachas, that a thick thigh, where does it start rotting? From the very internal part of it. In other words, even though it's a negative thing, we're saying that David came from Moav, and that's why he destroyed Moav, and Avadia came from Esav, and that's why he prophesied against Esav. Okay, then it has a pasuk that Vayikach is b'nei Abchoid, and Mesha, the king of Moav, took his older son, Asher Yimlech Tachta, that was intended to be the pretender to the throne, the next, assumed the next throne, by he brought him as a human sacrifice on the wall. Rabbi Shmuel Chadon Shemaim once says Mesha meant well, he did not mean well. According to one who says that he actually meant l'shem shemayim. Okay, so therefore it makes as a pasuk. It says, that the Abish were very angry with the Eden. Why? Because even though Mesha did the wrong thing, but he meant well. At least he served me. You, Eden, are ashamed. You don't even serve me. Okay, that Mesha himself was doing Avodah Zarah. Maybe what was he angry with Eden for? He asked the pasuk. See, in one pasuk it says, and following the rules of the goyim, the surrounding you, we didn't follow them. Sounds like he was commending them. In other words, it says, that you did follow. So which one is it? So we answered, this is what they were saying. It's both the same. There's no contradiction. The good kings of Moav, like Eglon Melech Moav, when Ehud came in to read to him a letter from the neighbors, he stood up out of respect. You didn't want to learn from. Came a college of Mesha, who took his son and he made a human sacrifice. He followed them. So then it says, Vayisu me'alav. He said they went away from him by Yeshuvul Aretz, and they came back to Aretz. Say la'artzam to Eretz Yisrael, to their land. They came back to Aretz. So therefore, what does that mean? Amar Abchanina bar Papa. To show that moment, Yordu the Shem Yisrael, the Shem Eden went down the Madrega Tachtaina, to its very nadir, to the very lowest level possible. Now we talked about Ma'od by Avadia, that he was an unbelievable Yarish Shemayim, greater than Abraham. When we learned by David HaMelech, we read in Haftarah Parashat Chi, David HaMelech was very sick, and they have the word of Ishak, and the pasuk said that she was a very pretty girl. So the Gemara says, they look at the pasuk, V'naira Yofa ad Ma'od. It doesn't say she was very pretty; she was pretty too very. Aruchin about Papa. What's the Tanakh trying to say here? Adayin lo yigia lechatzi yefesh of Sarah, did not even reach half of the biyah of Sarah. The Chesiv, it says ad ma'od. It says v'loy ma'od b'chlas, till ma'od, but not ma'od itself. Hadnaloch echad did